All right, got a good sized group, more people joining all the time. This looks good. We are going to start pretty close on time. I see some familiar names. So hello everyone, I'm Roberta McIntyre. I'm President and CEO of FireSafe Sonoma, and we're hosting this really cool presentation put on by the Upper Mark West FireSafe Council on evacuation and preparing for evacuation. So it's going to be a cool event. And let's see, I'm going to take care of a couple housekeeping items and a couple things about FireSafe Sonoma as I drop some stuff in the link in the chat. Let me drop some stuff in the chat real quick. Actually, I'll wait until later as people join. So anyway, we are going to have a presentation by Jeff Limlin and Jason Poloni from Sonoma County Fire District. And also Lynn's going to kick us off with the introduction to tell us what's going on with their council and share some experiences that they've had specifically related to evacuation. And actually they did an evacuation drill recently. She's going to share out about that. So yeah, at the end, we'll take questions after the presentation, and we are recording if you haven't noticed already. So if you have friends, neighbors, family members who you think should have this information, feel free to point them to the video once we get it uploaded on the applicable sites. And I'm sure Lynn and her team can share out the link to that once it's up and running. And if she wants, we'll put it on our YouTube channel for FireSafe Sonoma as well. All right. Also helping with me today from FireSafe Sonoma is Marika. Marika, am I forgetting anything, or are we good to go?
I think we're pretty good to go. Lynn, are we forgetting anything?
We've taken care of the housekeeping items. So I'm going to, at this point, hand it over to Lynn. And yeah, this is going to be a good one, you guys. I think you're all going to learn a lot. Especially, I'm interested to hear about the evacuation exercise. I was there for a little while, but I never got the debriefing. So I want to hear all the good stuff we learned. So, all right, Lynn, you got it.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn Garrick. I'm part of the Upper Mark West Fire Safe Council. I can see some of our other Fire Safe Council members on the screen. Basically, we're a group of 7 people who try to direct a bit where the Fire Safe Council is going, but we consider everybody that lives in the Mark West watershed to be the Upper Mark West watershed to be part of the Fire Council. So we are going to put the Fire Safe Council email address in the chat. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to use that. It's basically Upper Mark West Fire Safe Council at markwestwatershed.org, but we'll get it in the chat. And we're always happy to hear from our neighbors, always happy to hear what you're interested in so that we can plan future events. And tonight, this event is the result of a grant that we got from Sonoma RCD, Sonoma Resource Conservation District. They have been our partners on a number of projects. We did defensible space around 55 homes with RCD. We did half of Calistoga Road as a shaded fuel break, and we're finishing up the second half of that project this year. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, basically the Upper Mark West watershed, if you think of going north up the hill from Rincon Valley, it starts at the top of that grade. And then follows Calistoga Road to the intersection of Porter Creek and Petrified Forest Road. That's our kind of north-south access. The east and west, it goes from Calistoga Road again over following St. Helena Road to the Napa County line and kind of everything within those parameters. And we are the watershed, obviously, for Mark West Creek. One of the things that we did recently that we were really appreciative of is that we did an emergency evacuation exercise that was coordinated through the Sonoma County Department of Emergency Services. And we had about 100 participants from the watershed sign up for that event. They had to sign up in advance, and then they received a special email and text alert. And the instructions were evacuate, go to your evacuation point, which for that exercise was Maria Carrillo High School. At the same time, we had high-low sirens fire trucks and sheriff's deputies going throughout the watershed. So it was for us an opportunity to see, could we hear the high-low sirens? How long did it take us to get out? Did we remember to do everything that was on our list? And then we had a resource fair at the high school at the end of that. For the county, it gave them an opportunity to see, how did their system work? How did those high-low sirens work for them? What were the side roads in our community so that they knew where to find us in the event of an actual emergency? And so there was a real learning opportunity for both sides. And I just wanted to say a little bit about what the big takeaways were from the community point of view. One thing we learned, first of all, even before the exercise, is how important it is to have the Nixle link on our computers and in our phones, so that we get Nixle alerts, because in a real emergency, those alerts would be coming from the sheriff's department and they would be updated by the sheriff's department. It's the sheriff who gives the orders to evacuate. For the purpose of this exercise, we also signed up to socoemergency.org, their SoCo alert app, and we had those on our phones. But one of the things we learned is that if we don't have those phone numbers in our address books or in our contact list on our phones, they may come in identified as spam. And that's something that's done differently by different cell phone carriers. So if you have AT&T, maybe it will allow that phone call to come in. But you may see it as an unknown caller or a spam call. So it's really important that you have the phone numbers for SoCo alert in your phone. And I think we will put that in the chat also, since if you have a pencil handy, it's 866-419-5000 is the SoCo alert phone number. And the same thing is true if you live in the upper MarkWest watershed and you're participating in our local phone alert system. We do that for our community, and those numbers come through from a service we contract with that's out of state. It's called Bright Arrow. And if you don't have their phone number in your contact list, that might also show up as spam. That number is 855-994-4242. So in my phone, I have that 855 number. I have that identified as MarkWest phone alert system. So when the phone call comes in, because I don't always answer my phone, and I'm sure many of you don't always answer your phone. If I don't know the person that's calling, I just let it go to voicemail. So I make sure that I have that one in my phone as MarkWest phone alert system. I make sure that I have SoCo alert in my phone as SoCo alert, so that I'll pick up and see what the news is. So those were helpful lessons that we learned through that experience. One of the other things, because we did a survey attached to the exercise, and we asked people, did you have your go bag ready? Did you check on your neighbors? We found that only 60% of the people had a go bag ready. So we want to talk about that a little bit more tonight, to make sure that you, especially during fire season, that you have a go bag, that you know where it is, that's convenient for you to pick up, whether it's day or night, and throw it in your car if you need to evacuate. We also found out that only about half of people had the sheriff's evacuation tags. And Jason's going to talk about that more this evening, about the purpose of that and the benefit of that. On our survey, only 20% of the people said that they checked on a neighbor before they left. And I think that number might have been low because you knew it was an exercise rather than a real emergency. But we're hoping that everybody that lives in the watershed knows their neighbors, knows who might need help. And in the event of a real evacuation, that you would check in with those people, which also means we want you to leave early. We want you to have plenty of time to check in with those people, but we want you to check in with your neighbors and see if anybody needs any help to evacuate the area. So those were the most, I think the most important things that we learned. We also asked in that survey, what would you do differently next time. And the most common response to that was, I would pack or update my go bag. So let's talk a little bit about what should go in a go bag. And I will tell you that in my situation, I have two different lists. I have a checklist for red flag days. So as soon as I know that there's a weather warning or a red flag day is announced, then I go to my red flag checklist. And I'm just going to read to you a little bit what's on it. It basically says, get your go bag in your car, get the cat carrier in your car. Make sure, and this is one for all during fire season, make sure your gas tank is at least half full. I've been notorious in my life for always running on empty. I don't do that anymore since the Tubbs fire. And then grab your go bag. And because we have a list of what to do outside. So up here, it's like fill the water buckets on the corners of the house. Make sure the hoses are out there. We have a ladder that we put out if we're going to leave the property. So all of those things that we would want to have in place if we had to evacuate, we start making sure that we have those in place at the announcement of a red flag day. I also share my house with a housemate. And we have a rule that we don't both take vacations during fire season. So if she's on vacation, I need to know what to get from her side. She's going on vacation next week. So actually we had this conversation today and she said, she'll just put everything in her car. And so I don't have to go rummaging for it. And I oftentimes do the same thing when I'm out of town. So make sure that you're communicating with the other people in your household. If there's something important that they want you to get from their possessions, that you do so. And then there's on the red flag day, just a reminder, because in a real emergency, my brain doesn't operate that well. So I have a checklist that says, close the windows, bring in the floor mats and the cushions from the deck, put the ladder by the carport, and a reminder of what to put in my car. So those work for us, but everybody's different. Everybody has a different family structure. So it's really important, the communication that you have with your family, and what you all think is important, and that you put those in writing so that you don't have to remember them at the last minute. I will also say, when my children are adults now, but when my children were teenagers and were often off on their own schedules, we always had, where are we going to meet if we're not together when we evacuate? So our meeting place was under the clock at Maria Carrillo High School. Every day at noon, if I'm evacuated, or if you have had to evacuate somewhere, every day at noon, I'm going to check Maria Carrillo High School clock until I find you. So have a meetup place that works for your family, because we're all busy, have different schedules, and are not always working together on these things. So let me say a little bit about go bags. And again, I think we're going to put in the chat, or we will send out afterwards, some excellent, I think Ready, Set, Go is a pamphlet that that Roberta's going to make sure is in the chat, might be there already. It has a really good go bag checklist in that document. But just for now, I will mention, an N95 mask, because we're usually dealing with fire and smoke and particulates. So an N95 mask is one thing that I have in my go bag. I have work gloves. We put our chainsaws in our vehicles, because where we live, trees can fall across our driveway. So the chainsaw is an important thing to have with us. Leather gloves, long pants, boots, the kinds of things that we would want to make sure we have if we're trying to get out of this watershed in an emergency. Flashlight, headlamp, extra car keys, credit cards, a little bit of cash is a good idea. Making sure that if you have prescription medicines, that you have maybe an extra supply of those, or you've made sure to take them with you. If you have babies, then there might be things like infant formula. Again, tailor it to your family and what you need, but eyeglasses, contact lenses, battery operated radio, your important documents. When I left before the Tubbs fire, we're a lot smarter, and Jeff can talk about this a lot more too. As individuals, we're smarter. As a community, we're smarter. As public agencies, we're smarter. We're not going to make the same mistakes that we made or I made in the Tubbs fire. I looked at my things and thought, yeah, I'm evacuating. I'll be back tomorrow. I didn't take my passport. I didn't take any documents. Fortunately, I took my laptop, and pretty much everything is on my laptop. But I had a trip planned in that kind of next 3 to 6 month period, and I had to apply for a new passport. Insurance documents, that would have been really important. Things for my pets, all the little wires and chargers and cords that you need for your cell phone or your computer, all of those little converter kinds of things that you need to make your electronics work. I think, and I have a few special things. I don't have a lot left over because most of what I had, I lost in the Tubbs fire, but I have a few special family heirlooms that still exist. So they're odd, but I put my mom's soup ladle in my car, and I have a little box of photographs that I put in my car. Hopefully we'll all have time to do that. Hopefully we'll have lots of warning, but in the last, I guess the bottom line is, if you hear high-low sirens or you get a Nixle order to evacuate, that's what you need to do. That's your first priority. Don't worry about mom's soup ladle. Don't worry about your photographs. Get the heck out of the watershed. So I think those are the important things that we learned from our experiences before and from the evacuation alert. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Lynn, real quick, but as we switch it over to Jeff, would you mind putting those SoCo alert numbers in the chat? Because those went pretty quick and I couldn't write them down fast enough.
Yes,
Okay,
I will.
thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Roberta. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction of my partner over at Sonoma County Fire District, Deputy Fire Marshal Jason Poloni. But first, I just want to thank everyone for showing up tonight, making an investment in yourself, and you're helping us help you. Education in this topic is something that we always have to come back to. I always think of a kind of a famous quote. You guys might have heard it, but all good plans go to the wayside when you get punched in the face. And I always think that that's kind of like when these fires, we might have a plan, we might have even practiced that plan and have talked about it. Once that fire comes and embers start casting onto your property and your phone's going off with emergency alerts, your anxiety goes up. And if we don't practice these plans, if we don't talk about it every year, then when we have to evacuate, we're going to have anxiety. I have had to evacuate multiple times, my own house, and each time I'm anxious, and I do this for a living, and I'm used to working in high stress environments, and I still get riddled with anxiety. So thank you guys for being here. I'm going to kind of talk after Jason. I have a few minute video to show of where I'm doing evacuations within the watershed, in the Glass fire, and then in the have some videos from the Tubbs fire, and it's just going to show some extreme fire behavior and the kind of conditions that we face. And then I'm going to kind of close talking a little bit about what just happened, the tragedy in Maui. So Deputy Fire Marshal Poloni is going to talk to us about evacuation tags, and he's a wealth of knowledge. I'm sure he'll have some other things that he talks about. So Jason.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about evacuation tags. Sorry, I'm sun's in my eyes here. About evacuation tags tonight. Evacuation tags help first responders identify homes which have been evacuated so we can concentrate on the homes that have not. It also helps us go through neighborhoods, determine the evacuation has taken place so we can take action on these fires, especially when they're small, and try to mitigate them when they get into these neighborhoods. Evacuation tags should be kept with your go bags so you're not searching for them, so they're readily available. The last thing you're going to do as you're coming out of your property is attach that tag. If your home is close to a roadway where we can easily see your front door, that's a great spot to put it. However, most homes up in your area, you're behind a gate or your driveway is a little bit longer. So those tags should at least go out on your front gate or on the mailbox, so it's easily identifiable. Sorry, I got a couple notes here. So if you have say multiple houses on your property with different tenants and things, that evacuation tag tells us when it's out on the street or on that driveway or the gate, it tells us that whole property's been evacuated. So there wouldn't be any really need to have multiple tags. It's addressing that entire property. So I covered the go bags with that. Keep that with your go bag at all times. One thing while I'm doing these things are kind of popping in my head here. I just wanted to add something to Lynn's red flag list is back your car in your driveway. It's a lot easier to go straight out than it is to back up when things are smoky and dark and you're trying to do things quickly. I will be able to answer some more questions later on about the tags. But the biggest thing is to make sure you have them, understand what they're used for, and keep them with your go bags at all times.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show a quick video here. This is when I evacuated my house during the glass fire and just had some friends come over. We're trying to block our vents, and you can kind of just see the sky. I got a chainsaw. I cut the fence away from my house. But before I do that, I want to talk about the first fatality of the Tubbs fire that happened on Mountain Home Ranch Road. So the first fatality of the Tubbs fire happened less than an hour after the Tubbs fire started. This gentleman was told to evacuate, and he did not evacuate right away. He did not understand the urgency and the need to evacuate as quickly as he should have. And he could not find keys to his brand new truck that he was looking for. And he was overcome by extreme heat. And that was the first fatality less than a mile from the fire station during the Tubbs fire. And so it's just when people don't evacuate, we're finding more people are not evacuating because we've had more fires. They don't want to be out of their neighborhood for 2 weeks. And so people are staying behind. If you find yourself that you're a person that's staying behind, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Are you physically capable to stay behind if fire was going to be surrounding your entire property? And are you able to stay there with food and water without leaving? Because once people start leaving, they can't come back in. And when we're doing evacuations and we're fighting fire, and I've had this on every fire, people are driving around the roads in an evacuation zone and they're getting in our way. And so it impedes us from kind of doing what we're needing to do. Now, Lynn talked about us learning after all of these fires. A red flag meeting pre-Tubbs fire had a completely different meeting than the day after the Tubbs fire. And unfortunately, cities have not been learning from other cities that have gone through this. Sonoma County alone, it took the Tubbs fire and 22 people deceased. The procedures, the training that we have now, we have not had a loss of life during these large wildfires, the Glass fire, the Kincaid fire, after the Walbridge fire, after the Tubbs fire, because of the Tubbs fire. If we did not have the Tubbs fire, we would have had a loss of life in the Glass or the Kincaid, whatever the next big fire was. And so we've learned a lot as firefighters, but unfortunately, Paradise happened and the Maui fire has happened. And so these cities have not been able to learn from other people's mistakes. And us as humans, when we learn from others' mistakes, that we're wise when we don't have to learn it ourselves, right? So I'm gonna just show this first 1 minute video, just kind of get the feel of what it's like to leave your house. And then we're gonna watch 3 minutes and we're gonna see fire behavior from the Tubbs fire. You're gonna see some evacuations during the Glass fire on Gates Road. Also the Walbridge fire. I have a video clip where I was in a neighborhood mid-slope, surrounded by a bunch of fuel. I was never been on this road before. It's in the middle of the night. I'm trying to make sure people evacuated and I got trapped by fire. I have a small video of that, and it just shows you that I even understand fire behavior. I understand that I was in a bad spot, but things happen. And so just a little bit about where we are right now. Sonoma County Fire District has multiple engines up north fighting the lightning fires that are in Northern California. And there's been a lot of activity within the state. Thankfully, Sonoma and Napa, we have not had any offshore wind events. That being said, we do have a lot of fuel due to all of the rain that we've had. And so we could get a fire within the Tubbs Fire burn scar. It's going to be a different type of fire. A lot of the heavy timber is now just dead standing. So the density of the fuel has changed. But I think it would be a faster fire because there's a lot of brush and grass. We might not get the long range spotting that we've had in the Tubbs fire. But that being said, we do have a potential for extreme fire behavior to where we're not going to be able to get engines in every house, and we're going to be in a life priority mode trying to evacuate people. And so typically what we do as a fire district nowadays, our tactics have changed since we've been getting all of these fires that started in Lake County, the Valley Fire, and it's just kind of the start of all this. And our tactics have changed because we always are about protecting values at risk. The values at risk are the firefighters on the fire engines. We don't risk our lives to save property. We will risk our lives in a calculated manner to save savable lives. But we're not going to put ourselves in harm's way to save something that can be rebuilt. And that's been a shift in the fire culture, in the last, this has been going on for the last 15 years. I lost a dear friend that was a firefighter in San Diego in the Cedar Fire. He was protecting a home in Julian, and he got run over by fire. That fire burned the engine up. So we're not going to risk our lives to save property, but we will risk our lives to save lives. And so that's, when people tell me that they're going to stay behind and not evacuate, the first question I'll ask them is, I'll ask them for next of kin information. If I know the fire is going to come, I'll ask them for dental records. I will ask them for if I could take a photo of their ID. And this is just having a frank and real conversation with them. I as a firefighter, I can't make somebody leave. Law enforcement has that ability, and that's more reserved for people that are impeding us from doing our job. But firefighters, we can't force somebody to leave. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right, let's see here. Just ignore my dog barking in the background. Okay, so this is just me evacuating during the glass fire. We were fighting fire all night and came back because I knew I was going to lose my home. Find a block bank. This video going 5 pounds. All right, here it is. Here it is. Thank you, Lord, for this home that you blessed us with. Thank you for friends. Bye-bye, fishies. Lovely bathroom. So just kind of a little bit of a gut check for me. It always makes me choke up a little bit when I see this video and just remember the emotions. And, we were watching homes burn all night, and we were fighting fire all night, and then it's coming into my neighborhood, and it's, I understand what it's like to evacuate. I understand what the emotions that go with it. So here's a few minute video that we're going to watch here. And just was during the Wallbridge fire, and I was trying to make sure everyone evacuated. Quick drive by, see anybody, no lights on, and it's the same road I came in on. The fire came up the canyon pretty rapidly. This is a condition you can find yourself when you don't evacuate. So I just had to wait, knowing the fire behavior. I was hoping it would die down a little bit, and then I can make my way through safely. So this slide here, it's important that we have a 2-hour plan, a 1-hour plan, and a 5-minute plan. Nowadays, everyone is really educated on fire weather, red flag conditions. We know when they're coming. We know what the fuels are doing. We know that the directions that the wind's coming from. And another really good app that I'm sure everybody has, but if not, is Watch Duty. It's kind of like Twitter, real-time information. It's designed to where citizens can upload photos that a moderator can then tell you where the photo was taken, and it's real-time evacuation information. So we need redundancy. We need redundancy with notifications on evacuations. Let me just get out. Let me just close this real quick. So we need redundancy when we with ways to be notified. So from Nixle, from SoCo Alert, to Watch Duty, to neighbor email chains, and everyone is much more aware of fire weather. And so the videos that I just showed you, it's obviously it's emotional when we're looking at this fire behavior. We've all been traumatized. That us that have lived in the watershed, that have gone through this, us as firefighters have been traumatized. And I'm tired of seeing the destruction. I'm tired of seeing the loss of life. I don't know how much longer I can do it as a firefighter. I look forward to my retirement. It's not much longer, but it's taxing. And so it helps us a lot when people are educated when they live in an area that's fire prone. So I'm going to be honest with you. We live in areas that we probably should not live in, myself included. We live in very rich fire history areas. We do that because it's beautiful to live here. But with that comes the responsibility of us being educated, structural hardening, defensible space, go bags, being in tune with CAL FIRE's notifications. Their Ready, Set, Go website is so valuable. Being part of your local fire safe council, going to meetings, knowing who your neighbors are. All of these things help us help you. And so during the glass fire, we were under red flag conditions. I was staffing up where I volunteer with the Sonoma County Fire District in my neighborhood. I was staffing, red flag staffing. I got a call at 4 in the morning, between 4 and 5, that a fire started in Glass Mountain. I worked full time as a firefighter in Novato Fire as a captain, and I was supposed to go to work that morning. And so I turned the pager on, I turned the scanner on, excuse me, and immediately I started hearing the same type of evacuation orders that I've heard in the Tubbs fire and in the Kincaid fire, where people were trapped, they couldn't get out. And once I kind of heard what was going on, I was like, oh no. And my wife was dead asleep, and she woke up and goes, where is it? She didn't ask me what was going on. She's like, where is it? Where's the fire? And it's like, unfortunately, this is what we've been dealing with. And so I drove down into Calistoga. I'm like, I'm just going to get eyes on it, see where it's at. Once I went down Petrified Forest Road, when you start to make your way toward Friends Valley School, I could see the fire. And I was like, oh, this is really close. This is closer than I thought it was going to be. And so all day it burned north east of Silverado Trail. The goal was to hold it east of Silverado Trail, and it was burning north towards Calistoga. Now, this is the last time the St. Helena Road drainage burned was during the Great Fire in late 1800s. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because fires repeat themselves because of fuel, weather, and topography. And so it's not an anomaly what we've been dealing with. These fires have burned before. People forget, we forget. And so obviously we know that the Hanley fire burned in 64? And then the Tubbs fire, they were different fires, though. Same footprint, different fires. The Tubbs fire burned in about 9 hours, what the Hanley fire did in 3 days. And so fires are more extreme. But back to the Glass fire and then the last fire of the Great Fire of the late 1800s, there's records of that in the Press Democrat of ranchers talking about their fence posts being burned. So the Great Fire late 1800s started north of Helena, south of Calistoga, and burned into Santa Rosa. And so there's history there. And we know about this history. And so when this fire came and it burned into Gates Canyon, it was extreme fire behavior. And I found myself a couple times on Diamond Mountain with fire all around me. We didn't have enough resources. It takes 24 hours to get the cavalry from Southern California, sometimes up to 36 hours. And so people, a lot of times during these wind-driven events, and we have a fire, are wondering where all the resources are. Within Sonoma County, we could have between the CAL FIRE unit, Santa Rosa Fire, Sonoma County Fire District, and all the volunteer departments, we could have close to 50 engines. So we can't fight a wind-driven fire when it's spotting 1 to 2 miles ahead of itself. This is where you guys help us help you by allowing us to get in and actually fight the fire when we can find targets of opportunity and we don't have to go around and start to do evacuations because people have evacuated, like the Kincaid fire, right? The fire models showed that fire was going to burn to the coast. The smoke plume kind of confirms what the models were showing. That plume went straight out to the coast. We were able to make a stand on 101 to hold it, because all of the historic evacuations that happened within Sonoma County, there were historic evacuations, Windsor, Healdsburg, all of that area allowed us to put our resources where it needed to go, which was to stop and fight the fire, which people want. We don't want to lose our things. We don't want to lose our animals. We don't want to lose our lives, right? So it's just being in tune to all of these things to help us help you. Are these fires going to happen again in our lifetime? I don't know. But I do know that they will happen again. It could be this year. When we fast forward to October this year, would I be surprised driving down the Calistoga Road, Porter Creek, Petrified Forest Road with my high lows, getting people to evacuate? I would not be surprised one bit. Before the Tubbs fire, I would always say it's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when. But I didn't even know what I was saying then. I didn't have the slides in my slide tray to understand what the potential was here, like we all do now, what the potential is. We know. And so as firefighters, we make decisions, and firefighters, police officers, veterans, people in the Army, when they're in conflict, we make decisions based on a model called prime recognition decision-making model. And basically, to summarize that up, we make decisions based upon slides on our slide tray. When we have previous experiences, we bring that slide in and it helps us to make those decisions. This all happens very quickly, and it's all proven that this is how we make decisions. Without slides in the slide tray, it's hard for us to make those decisions in a time crunch, critical, life-threatening environment. And so we try to replicate that. And so that's how we did the evacuation drills, talking just about these webinars, just having these conversations. If you do not have a plan, when embers are starting to broadcast onto your property and your phone's going off with emergency alerts and your animals are not secured, You haven't communicated because it's a red flag condition. You haven't communicated with your significant other, and your stuff's all over the house. It's not going to go well for you. It's not. I can promise you that. And so the goal of what we're doing here tonight is to try to increase awareness. We've been through this before, but human nature tells me and tells us that we forget. We forget that we've been through this, and kind of life goes on, and we think that, you know, when we start to get the rain and that we're okay. And a lot of times people say, well, the fuel, it's already burned, right? And yeah, it has burned, but it'll just be a different type of fire. So Jason, do you have anything you want to add? I've been talking for a little bit here, and you still with us, my man?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I think you hit it right on the head. Yeah, I mean, the fire, it will happen again, right? We know that. But I think, like we were just talking, we're better prepared for it. We're preparing our homes differently. We're preparing our properties differently, and we're allowing these fires, you know, to come onto our properties, and our houses are able to be okay because of the work that we've done. We've removed ourselves from that dangerous area. The fire will hopefully go around your home and continue on. And the work that we've been doing with the vegetation management and home hardening is going to be, I think it's going to be a great thing. You know, if unfortunately that scenario takes place, because we've really prepared for it.
Jeff, we have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
That we'd like you to expound on. Somebody
Yeah, I'm
asked a
reading.
question, what do you mean by like your 1 hour plan and your 5-minute plan and all that? Can you expound on that?
Yeah, Linda, thanks for asking that, and forgive me for not kind of like diving into that right at the beginning, but thanks for asking that question. That can be a little bit confusing. So a 2-hour plan, a 1 hour plan, a 5-minute plan. So typically, not all the times, but a lot of times we know when there's a fire in the area. Let's take the glass fire as a case study for this 5-minute plan, 2-hour plan, 1 hour plan, 5-minute plan. So we knew that there was a fire close by burning in Silverado Trail. We knew we were in red flag conditions. So that's when we can start, we have time. So that's what I mean by a 2-hour plan, even a day. We have time to load up stuff. We have time, the fire's not going to be at our property in 10 hours. So you have time to call people, load up your cars, maybe get a trailer, have a plan to place to stay. You know, when we start going to that 2-hour plan, that's when you start getting evacuation warning. When you find yourself in that evacuation warning window, that's when the wheels need to start moving. Okay. And we advise people, when you get that warning, to get out. You don't wait for the order. So during the glass fire, I came in after the sheriffs on Diamond Mountain Road. I found a couple that were showering, and I went into their house. I said, what are you guys still doing here? The fire's coming. They said, well, the high-low only went out a half an hour ago. The sheriffs were only here a half an hour ago. And I knew these people, so I was able to grab them by the back of their necks and get them in their car. I was friends with them. And we talked later about that. So when you don't have time, that's when you have the 5-minute plan. And so what am I going to do when I have 2 hours? When I have 2 hours, I might cut the wood fence off my that's connected to my house, put some tinfoil up on my vents, close all my windows, get a ladder to the roof, get my hoses charged, right? Maybe blow real quick off around my area, around the house, and make sure that's tightened up. The 5-minute plan, I'm getting in the car, getting everything that's living, and getting out. Passports can be replaced, driver's license can be replaced, insurance, who cares about insurance? Who cares about anything else other than life at that point? And getting out so that emergency services can come in to hopefully do some work. Does that, Linda, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Jeff, I want to expound on that. I as communities, as people that live together in a shared experience on this planet, I think we all need to get comfortable evacuating, regardless of where you live. Fires, hurricanes, whatever, we really need to develop a sense of being comfortable evacuating, not freaked out about it. So if you get that 2-hour warning, it's no different than a couple of old high school buddies calling you up and saying, hey, we're in town. Do you want to meet for dinner in a couple hours? You know what to do, you know what to grab, you know what to take with you. It should be that comfortable, leaving your house, in a good spot when you go. I really think that it's something we need to all get better at, just being comfortable evacuating.
And I'd like to add something to that too, because I think after the Tubbs fire, I thought of myself as kind of getting well prepared. But well prepared for me meant like, when I hear there's a fire in Lake County, I'll pay attention. When I hear there's a fire in Napa County, I'll start to pay attention. But the real wake up call for me came about a year ago when we had dry lightning in the middle of the night. And dry lightning can happen in an instant anywhere. So it was a wake up call for me to say, hey, smarty, you better have that 5-minute plan because you may not have red flag warnings. And I think the other thing I wanted to say is that we're really concentrated on fire tonight, but evacuations and preparedness should be across the board. We should be ready for earthquakes. We should be ready for other kinds of disasters. So I don't know. I think Ready, Set, Go is pretty focused on fire, but it's also maybe time to dust off your, what do you do in the event of an earthquake? And what do you do if your evacuation plan was to go to mom's house and she's on the other side of Highway 101 and Highway 101 isn't passable any longer? So having, as Jeff said, redundant plans. How can you get out to the east? How can you get out to the west? Because plan A may not work and you might need a plan B.
Yeah, and then if you have pets, it's a good idea to scope out hotels in areas you're likely to evacuate to that take pets. And I'm telling you from personal experience, if you evacuate early, you increase your chances of getting a room in those hotels. If you evacuate late, you're going to have a real tough time finding a hotel anywhere close, while you're evacuating. So yeah, that's something to be aware of too. The early bird does get the worm. If you evacuate earlier, you'll get a good hotel probably. I remember evacuating one time and I ended up in literally a roach motel. I won't name the brand, but I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, turn on the light, and there was like quite a few roaches scurrying across the floor. It was gross.
I also wanted to talk a minute. I think Roberta, you were going to a link. I'm getting feedback here. A link to the Maui fire victims. Can you hear me?
It went in the chat,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'll drop it in again real quick.
Okay, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what happened over there. Obviously, I wasn't over there, but just looking at the conditions, looking at the proximity, looking at what they had going on leading up to that fire, and the lack of historical wind-driven conflagrations is kind of why they were in the predicament where we have this huge loss of life. So a lot of people like to judge when people push the alarm for evacuations when they don't do it. And I hope I never am in that situation. That's not an easy situation to be in. And I talked a little bit about, we make decisions based upon slides in the slide tray. These people have never dealt with something like this. The only time that they would hit the sirens in Maui is to get people to run up the hills for tsunamis and for those types of disasters. And they didn't want people to run up to the hills. That being said, would have people gotten outside and seen the fire? Who knows? But it's tragic. And when you're in your cars evacuating, cars catch fire. Cars are very flammable. They have the rubber tires. During the Tubbs fire, we burned multiple police cars. During the Glass fire, our deputy chief almost burned his car in the St. Helena Road drainage. It started off gassing inside the cab. And all of these things happen very quickly. We used to talk about TRAs and safety zones. That's terminology we use as firefighters, where we're going to go where we don't have to deploy our shelter is a safety zone. We're starting to get away from the terminology of a temporary refuge area. That's an area that we're going to shelter, let the fire come through. And there's just, with this extreme fire behavior, we're finding that we just can't be in areas where there's overgrown fuel, mid-slope roads. So what dictates fire behavior is fuel, weather, and topography. And I just want to talk really briefly about this. If you were to take millions and millions of gallons of water and to pour it on top of a mountain, wherever the water is going to go down that mountain, that's where the fire is going to run historically. The reason why is because of preheating. So fire likes to go with the path of least resistance. And so it's going to run in drainages, box canyons, due to convected heat columns. And so it's just a simple analogy to, if you, wherever the water is going to go down a mountain, like the Mark West drainage, you picture, if you dump tons of water down on top of a model, wherever that water goes, that's where we're going to have the worst fire behavior. And like the Mark West drainage, and where it tied into Alpine, and it follows the topography. And there's reasons why the Gates Canyon is never really burned. It's protected from the wind a little bit. There's a lot of moisture in this canyon, but it will burn one of these days, hotter than it has been. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that. And I don't have anything else to add. I don't know if there's more questions. And I see, Roxanne, you have your hand up. Did you have your hand up, or are you saying hi?
Yeah, no, I think to Lynn's point, we obviously have felt recent fires, and many of us here in the Alpine Valley feel like, well, we're above the flood zone and we don't need to worry about floods. We're not Geyserville and out in the Russian River areas. And yet when we saw the winter storms this past year, we had some flooding and some ice, and a car spun out and blocked our road to the north on Calistoga Road. Somebody else hit utility poles on the south. Utility poles were down. So it is, even though we're most, I think, concerned about fires here, it's Lynn's point of being prepared even to have to shelter in place for a long period of time. And most of us have our well systems, have water. If your power is out, is your well, do you have backup tanks? Are they gravity fed? But thinking about things of being stranded for 3 days, 5 days, 8 days, do we have those supplies to maintain where we need to be on site? And again, like I said, with fires are certainly the very real concern, but being stranded and being on your property and how well can we function is important as well.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. You're absolutely right. And earthquakes and everything else. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot that we used to not deal with, from active shooters and all these different types of things. And so just being having situational awareness. There's a 5-step decision-making model that we use as firefighters. And the first step is situational awareness. What's going on? What's the weather doing? Where are there fires? And then the next step is hazard assessment. What are the hazards, and is there a control I can put in place? Like, are there power lines down across the roadway? So situational awareness, I'm evacuating, I'm driving out, trying to go to Santa Rosa, I'm doing hazard assessment. Can I see? Are my windows up? What's the smoke conditions doing? Oh no, there's power lines across the road. There's a hazard. Is there a control that I can put in place for this hazard? Well, I don't want to drive over it, so I'm probably going to turn around and do a 180 and maybe tell other people, and maybe text people, call the dispatch, let them know, and then I'm going to make a decision, and then I'm going to reevaluate. So situational awareness, hazard assessment, hazard control, make a decision, reevaluate. That's the 5 steps that I'm going through constantly. It doesn't matter if it's a structure fire, doesn't matter if it's a grass fire, a medical aid. And I'm always thinking and going through this process, just trying to be a 3 steps ahead. So with fires, same with police officers. I'm going to use a police officer analogy really quickly. is they want to be 3 steps ahead of a criminal they're working with. If a criminal pulls out a knife, they want to pull out a taser. You know, if the criminal pulls out something else more lethal, they want to pull out their gun. They want to be ahead. And so we as firefighters try to be 3 steps ahead of what the fire's doing. I don't want to be reactionary and making a decision at that point. I'm going to make a bad decision. So when I'm in charge of a crew and I'm out there on the fire line, we're protecting homes, I already have trigger points that if this happens, I'm doing this. I don't have to make up that plan. So let's use that analogy really quick with evacuations. If there's a fire nearby, I'm already going to be loading up. If it's even if it's in Napa County, if it's close by and I'm not getting evacuation warning yet, that's a trigger point for me. It's going to make me act. I'm going to do something. And that something I'm going to do is part of the plan that I've already done. When do we prepare for evacuations? In January, in February, in March, and in April. That's when we do it. That's when we fight fire too, through mitigation, right? So we have a man-made forest because we have not been doing controlled burns. We've been putting out fires quickly. We haven't been managing the forest. And so we have a lot of different, the conditions that we're in, it didn't take us overnight to get to this point. And we're not gonna get out of this overnight either. It's going to take time. There's new policies and allowing us to do more control burning, there's more education, there's more money going into this, there's more funding. And so I just want to close with this. We have to take responsibility for our own actions and for where we live. It's on us. We cannot rely on a fire engine, a sheriff's officer, to come and evacuate us. We have to take some responsibility because we live in this beautiful place. We have to take some of that responsibility. I'm here as a volunteer and I do everything that I can. Why I volunteer in this community is to relieve pain and suffering. That's why I do get up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, respond to calls and to try to help people. I do not want to have any more loss of life in our watershed due to fires. And so I'm asking you, I'm begging you to help us help you. And I'm going to close with that. That's all I got.
That was great, Jeff.
Okay.
Lynn,
Thank
do
you,
you have
Jeff.
anything you want to wrap up with? We are just about out of time.
Just to thank everybody for checking this out this evening. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Jason and Roberta and Marika. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, I do want to close with, I'll drop some in the chat. Nancy Brown, Dr. Nancy Brown from Sonoma County Emergency Management. She is going to be on Fire Safe Sonoma Speaker Series next month, and she's going to, Marika, can you remind me specifically of what she's going to cover? I think I remember, but I want to be certain.
Yeah, absolutely. She's going to be on November 16th. Next month, we have Mike from California Fire Safe Council, but she'll be following him and she'll be talking about how far we've come in terms of being prepared for disasters since 2017 specifically. So that's going to be a great conversation to hear from the Department of Emergency Services about, how prepared we are right now. So that'll be a great presentation.
I think it'll be a good follow-up to this one. It'll reinforce a lot of the stuff that Chief Lemlin and Fire Marshal Poloni were talking about. So, all right, Lynn. I think anything else? Do you want to take any last questions?
It might be helpful, Marika, to put in the chat how people can sign up for the speaker series, because I find those very helpful also.
Absolutely.
She dropped it in the link.
Yeah, I can drop it in one more time in case anybody missed it. So it's right there.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.